Falcon returns with a message. The secret it reveals is unbelievable. The sun dipped low on the horizon, its golden light spilling over the endless expanse of the Arabian desert. Waves of shimmering heat danced over dunes that seemed to stretch infinitely, their curves painted in hues of ochre and burnt amber. The air was dry and heavy, carrying whispers of a forgotten past, stories buried under the sands of time. In this desolate yet mesmerizing land, life had learned to adapt in remarkable ways. From the hardy acacia trees that defied the arid climate to the shadows of desert foxes darting between rocks, the desert was alive, though its secrets were well guarded. Above, the sky remained an endless canvas, brushed with strokes of orange, purple, and gold, a silent witness to the mysteries unfolding below. In this vast and unforgiving wilderness, an imposing falcon sliced through the heavens. Its wings carved powerful arcs against the fading sunlight, a regal silhouette commanding the skies. The bird was no ordinary falcon. It was a sacred falcon, revered in the region for its speed and hunting prowess. To the Bedouins, it was more than a bird. It was a symbol of freedom, strength, and an unyielding bond with nature. But tonight, this falcon bore a purpose far greater than any hunt. Its talons clutched a small, weathered pouch, tied with leather straps. Where it came from was a mystery. Where it was going was an even greater enigma. Beneath the desert sky, a lone figure trudged forward. Khalid, a man in his late 30s, was a product of this land. A shepherd who had spent his life traversing these sands. His face, weathered and tanned by years under the scorching sun, bore the quiet resolve of someone who had learned to listen to the whispers of the wind. Khalid was no stranger to hardship. The desert, for all its beauty, was merciless. His family's survival depended on their flock of goats, but recent months had been brutal. A drought, worse than any in living memory, had turned grazing grounds into barren wastelands. His animals were dwindling, and with them his hope. Despite the despair, Khalid clung to the teachings of his late father, a man who believed in the interconnectedness of all things. "The desert tests us, Khalid," he would say, "but it also provides. When you think all is lost, look to the skies. Answers come when you least expect them." Khalid's solitary existence was occasionally interrupted by a creature he had grown to trust, a sacred falcon he named Zephyr. He had found the falcon as a chick, abandoned and vulnerable. Against all odds, Khalid had raised it, forging an unbreakable bond. Though Zephyr was free to roam the skies, it always returned, a silent guardian to its human companion. As dusk fell, Khalid prepared to settle in for the night. He pitched his modest tent and lit a small fire, its flickering light casting dancing shadows against the dunes. The desert's temperature dropped swiftly, the warmth of the day replaced by a biting chill. Just as he began to relax, a sharp cry pierced the air. Khalid's heart leapt. He recognized the call instantly. Zephyr. The falcon descended like an arrow, landing gracefully on a nearby rock. But something was different. Its posture was tense, its sharp eyes darting nervously. Khalid noticed the pouch tied to its leg. "What is this, Zephyr?" he murmured, approaching cautiously. He untied the pouch and opened it, revealing a small scroll of parchment, tightly rolled and sealed with a wax insignia he didn't recognize. The message was written in an elegant yet hurried script. It was in Arabic, and its words sent chills through Khalid's spine. "To the one who finds this, you are chosen. The secret lies in the Valley of Echoes. Time is short. Trust the falcon." Khalid stared at the note, his mind racing. The Valley of Echoes was a place shrouded in legend, spoken of in hushed tones by desert dwellers. It was said to be a forbidden place, where the wind carried voices of the past, and those who ventured there seldom returned. Before Khalid could make sense of the message, Zephyr let out another cry, this one urgent and almost pleading. The falcon took flight, circling overhead before heading east. "Wait!" Khalid shouted, his voice echoing into the night. But the bird didn't stop. It was clear Zephyr wanted him to follow. Khalid hesitated. The desert at night was treacherous, and the Valley of Echoes was days away. Yet something about the message felt destined. His father's words echoed in his mind. Look to the skies. Answers come when you least expect them. Grabbing only the essentials, a water skin, a small bag of dates, and his father's dagger, Khalid mounted his camel, Noor. Together, they followed the faint silhouette of the falcon, disappearing into the night. The journey began in silence, broken only by the sound of Noor's hoofs crunching against the sand. The desert, so vibrant during the day, now seemed otherworldly under the light of 1,000 stars. Shadows stretched long and dark, and the air carried an eerie stillness. As Khalid pushed onward, strange things began to happen. The wind picked up, carrying whispers that seemed almost human. Shapes flickered in his peripheral vision, but when he turned, there was nothing there. Noor grew restless, snorting and stamping her feet. And then, out of nowhere, a sudden gust of wind extinguished his lantern. Darkness enveloped him. Khalid? A voice whispered, soft yet unmistakable. He froze. His heart pounded against his ribcage as he scanned the emptiness around him. The voice had been clear, but there was no one there. Before he could react further, Zephyr returned, landing on Noor's saddle horn. Its sharp eyes locked onto Khalid's, as if urging him to continue. Lead the way, Khalid whispered, his voice trembling. The falcon took flight once more, and Khalid followed, unaware that he was about to uncover a secret that would change everything he thought he knew about his world, the desert, and himself. The journey to the Valley of Echoes had begun, and with it, the unraveling of an unbelievable mystery. Khalid's journey toward the Valley of Echoes unfolded like a test of will and endurance. Each mile of sand felt heavier than the last, but the unwavering presence of Zephyr kept him moving. The falcon circled overhead, sometimes flying ahead to scout the terrain and other times perching nearby, as if sensing Khalid's growing doubts. The bond between man and bird grew even stronger in the vast emptiness of the desert. Khalid found himself speaking to Zephyr as though it could understand every word. Do you know what you're leading me into, my friend? Khalid asked aloud one night as they paused to rest. Zephyr cocked its head in response, the firelight reflecting in its piercing eyes. Despite the eerie whispers that occasionally rode the wind, Khalid felt strangely comforted by the falcon's presence. It was as though Zephyr carried not just the mysterious message, but also a quiet reassurance that Khalid wasn't alone in his quest. But their journey wasn't without its trials. On the second day, the wind shifted dramatically, bringing with it a sandstorm. The world turned into a swirling, suffocating vortex of grit and blinding fury. Khalid wrapped his keffiyeh tightly around his face and clung to Noor, urging the camel forward blindly. Through the storm, Zephyr appeared again and again, its form barely visible as it fought against the brutal winds to guide Khalid. It was during this harrowing ordeal that Khalid realized the depth of the falcon's loyalty. Despite the tempest, Zephyr refused to abandon him, an unspoken promise of trust and unity. When the storm finally subsided, the desert lay in eerie silence. Khalid, battered but alive, looked up to see Zephyr perched on a rock, preening its feathers as if to say, "We're not done yet." As Khalid pressed forward, the landscape began to change. The endless dunes gave way to rocky outcroppings and jagged cliffs, signaling that he was nearing the Valley of Echoes. Along the way, Khalid stumbled upon another traveler, a woman named Layla. Layla was a researcher and archaeologist, her sharp eyes and sunburned skin evidence of her years in the field. She had been studying ancient Bedouin legends and had heard whispers about the Valley of Echoes. Though she initially regarded Khalid with suspicion, the sight of Zephyr perched calmly on his shoulder intrigued her. "This bird of yours," she said, her voice tinged with awe. "It's no ordinary falcon, is it?" Khalid shook his head. "It brought me a message, a call to this valley. I don't know what it means yet, but I have to see it through." Layla decided to join him, her curiosity outweighing her caution. She shared stories of ancient texts that spoke of the valley as a place where the boundaries between the physical and spiritual worlds blurred. According to legend, the voices in the valley were not echoes at all but the whispers of those who had passed on, carrying warnings or messages for the living. Their conversations deepened the mystery surrounding the Valley of Echoes. Together, they speculated about what they might find: a hidden treasure, an ancient civilization, or perhaps something far more extraordinary. As they neared the valley, the environment grew more foreboding. The air felt heavier, charged with an almost electric tension. Strange carvings began to appear on the rocks, symbols that Layla recognized from her research but couldn't fully decipher. "These markings are warnings," Layla said, tracing the intricate lines with her fingers. "They speak of a secret too powerful for mortal hands." The closer they got, the more ominous the journey became. At night, the whispers on the wind grew louder, almost conversational, though their words were indecipherable. Nor became increasingly skittish, and even Zephyr, usually so composed, seemed agitated. On the third night, as they camped just a day's journey from the valley, the true danger revealed itself. A pack of jackals, their eyes glowing unnaturally in the firelight, emerged from the shadows. They didn't attack outright but circled the camp, their low growls and bared teeth a clear warning. Khalid and Layla stood back to back, their weapons drawn. Zephyr took to the air, screeching loudly to deter the predators. "What do they want?" Layla whispered, her voice trembling. "They're guarding something," Khalid replied, his eyes fixed on the circling jackals. Just as the situation seemed dire, Zephyr dived sharply, its talons grazing the alpha jackal's muzzle. The creature yelped and retreated, and the rest of the pack followed. It was clear Zephyr wasn't just a guide but a protector. When dawn broke, Khalid and Layla finally reached the entrance to the Valley of Echoes. The sight before them was both breathtaking and terrifying. Towering cliffs flanked a narrow gorge, their surfaces covered in more of the strange carvings. A haunting, melodic hum filled the air, as though the valley itself was alive. "This is it," Layla said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The place where the whispers come to life." As they stepped into the valley, the humming grew louder, the carvings seemed to shimmer in the light, and Zephyr flew ahead, disappearing into the depths. "Wait!" Khalid called, his voice swallowed by the valley's strange acoustics. Before they could follow, the ground beneath them began to tremble. A deep, resonant voice echoed through the gorge, unlike anything they had ever heard. "You have come seeking the truth, but are you prepared to face it?" Khalid and Layla froze, their eyes wide with fear and wonder. The valley had spoken. What lay ahead would test not only their courage but their very understanding of the world itself. The Valley of Echoes loomed like a living entity, its cliffs pulsing with an energy that Khalid and Layla could feel deep in their bones. The carvings, once inert symbols, now glowed faintly, as though awakened by their presence. Zephyr, perched atop a jagged rock, let out a piercing cry that echoed through the gorge, blending with the strange melodic hum that filled the air. "What is this place?" Layla whispered, her voice barely audible over the growing resonance. Khalid stepped forward cautiously, his gaze fixed on the faint outline of a massive archway carved into the rock ahead. The inscriptions on its surface seemed to ripple, shifting between recognizable letters and incomprehensible shapes. Suddenly, a deep, resonant voice filled the valley once more, reverberating through their very beings. "The message you carry will change everything, but to reveal it, you must confront what lies within yourself." Khalid and Layla exchanged a nervous glance. Before they could respond, the ground beneath them began to tremble violently. The archway split open, revealing a dark tunnel that seemed to stretch infinitely into the earth. "This is it," Khalid said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "This is why Zephyr led us here." As if on cue, the Falcon swooped down, circling Khalid once before flying into the tunnel. Without hesitation, Khalid followed, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. Layla hesitated for a moment, then gritted her teeth and stepped in after him. Inside, the air was thick and heavy, carrying an almost tangible sense of foreboding. The walls were lined with more glowing carvings, their light casting eerie shadows that danced like spirits. The whispers that had been faint outside now grew louder, forming a cacophony of voices speaking in languages neither Khalid nor Layla could understand. At the end of the tunnel, they entered a cavernous chamber illuminated by a single, ethereal beam of light that seemed to emanate from nowhere. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and atop it rested a weathered scroll bound with a golden seal. This is it, Layla breathed, her eyes wide with awe. As Khalid stepped closer to the pedestal, the whispers coalesced into a single voice, deep and commanding. The message is yours to deliver, but its burden is great. Are you willing to bear it? Khalid hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He turned to Layla, who nodded silently, her expression a mix of encouragement and apprehension. With a deep breath, Khalid reached for the scroll. The moment his fingers touched the golden seal, a blinding light engulfed the chamber. Images flooded Khalid's mind, visions of a world on the brink of collapse, of nature ravaged by human greed, of wars fought over dwindling resources. But amidst the chaos, there were also glimpses of hope. People uniting to heal the earth, animals and humans living in harmony, and the Falcon Zephyr, flying high above it all as a symbol of balance restored. When the light faded, Khalid staggered back, his chest heaving as he processed what he had seen. The message, he said, his voice trembling. It's not just for me, it's for everyone. The whispers faded, replaced by a profound silence that felt almost sacred. Khalid turned to Layla, his eyes brimming with tears. It's a warning, he said, his voice steady despite the emotion coursing through him. A warning and a call to action. If we don't change, if we don't listen, everything will be lost. Layla nodded, her expression solemn. Then we have to make them listen, she said. Zephyr let out a soft cry, as if in agreement, before taking flight. The falcon circled the chamber once, then soared back through the tunnel, its movements graceful and purposeful. As Khalid and Layla emerged from the tunnel, the valley seemed to come alive with a new energy. The carvings glowed brighter, and the melodic hum transformed into a harmonious symphony, as though the valley itself was celebrating their success. But their journey was far from over. The message they carried was powerful, but delivering it to a world that might not want to hear it would be the true test. As Khalid and Layla began their trek back through the desert, the weight of their mission settled heavily on their shoulders. The desert, once a place of silence and solitude, now seemed alive with anticipation. Even Noor, the ever-stoic camel, seemed to sense the gravity of their task. Zephyr flew ahead, its sharp cries echoing like a herald's call. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the dunes, a new sound reached their ears, the distant, rhythmic thrum of approaching helicopters. Khalid and Layla froze, their hearts pounding. Someone else knows, Layla said, her voice barely above a whisper. The helicopters grew louder, their searchlights piercing the darkness. As the beams swept across the dunes, Khalid tightened his grip on the scroll, his resolve hardening. No matter what happens, he said, his voice firm, this message must reach the world. The scene faded to black, leaving the audience on the edge of their seats, desperate to know what dangers awaited them and whether the message would survive. The rhythmic thrum of the helicopters sent ripples of tension through the silent desert night. Khalid and Layla crouched low behind a dune, their hearts pounding. Zephyr perched nearby, its sharp eyes scanning the horizon. What do we do? Layla whispered, clutching her bag tightly. We move, Khalid replied, his voice steady but urgent. We can't let them take the message. With careful steps, they navigated the dunes, the helicopter's searchlights slicing through the darkness. Khalid's grip on the scroll tightened as though it were an extension of himself. Every sound, every shadow seemed to magnify the stakes. As dawn approached, the desert began to reveal its hidden paths. Zephyr flew ahead, guiding them to an ancient ravine partially hidden by craggy outcroppings. It offered temporary refuge from their pursuers. This isn't over, Khalid said as they caught their breath. But we've come too far to turn back. Their journey out of the desert became a battle of endurance and strategy. Along the way, they encountered people, a nomadic tribe who offered food and shelter, a lone traveler who claimed to have heard of the Valley of Echoes but dared not enter. Each encounter reinforced the weight of their mission, as whispers of the Falcon's journey began to spread like wildfire. Layla used her connections to arrange a safe passage out of the region, navigating a network of allies who shared their desire to protect the world's natural and spiritual balance. For Khalid, each step away from the valley felt like a step toward destiny. Back in the bustling city, Khalid and Layla faced a new challenge: how to share the message with a world that might not believe it. The scroll's intricate symbols defied modern interpretation, and its meaning was layered with spiritual and ecological warnings. "We need to simplify it," Layla suggested one evening as they worked tirelessly in her small apartment, poring over translations and connections. "The essence of the message is clear: we need to change. The planet needs us to listen." They collaborated with environmentalists, spiritual leaders, and scholars, forming a coalition to amplify their findings. Khalid's story of being chosen by Zephyr, the falcon that bridged the gap between humanity and nature, became a global sensation. Documentaries, interviews, and campaigns spread their message far and wide. Zephyr, ever the enigmatic guide, continued to live up to its symbolic role. The falcon's presence at key events and rallies seemed almost mythical, as though it understood the impact of its own story. But not everyone welcomed the message. Skeptics dismissed it as folklore, and powerful entities with vested interests in maintaining the status quo sought to discredit Khalid and Layla. Yet, their growing coalition stood firm, bolstered by an overwhelming public response. In time, the message from the Valley of Echoes began to take root. Communities around the world adopted sustainable practices, ancient wisdom was re-examined, and a new sense of interconnectedness emerged. Khalid and Layla's journey became a symbol of humanity's ability to reconnect with nature and heed its warnings. Years later, Khalid stood on a stage, addressing an audience of thousands at an international summit on environmental conservation. The scroll, now housed in a secure museum as a cultural and spiritual artifact, had inspired countless movements. "The Falcon's call was not just for me," Khalid said, his voice resonating with conviction. "It was for all of us. For generations, we've lived as though the earth is ours to command. But the truth is we belong to it. Zephyr, the Valley of Echoes, and the message, they're reminders of what we stand to lose if we don't change." Zephyr, now older but no less majestic, perched on Khalid's arm. The audience erupted into applause, their collective energy a testament to the change that had begun. As Khalid stepped down from the stage, Layla joined him, a smile on her face. "Do you ever think about the valley?" she asked. "Every day," Khalid replied. "But now it's not just a memory, it's a mission." The falcon took flight, its powerful wings carrying it high above the crowd. It was a symbol of hope, a bridge between humanity and the natural world, and a reminder that the echoes of the past could shape a brighter future. As Khalid and Layla watched Zephyr disappear into the horizon, they felt a profound sense of peace. The message had been delivered, and the world was listening.